What's up, guys? Your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson here, and you might notice this recording sounds different than the usual podcast, and that is because I'm sitting outside here in Lockhart, Texas, recording this ad into my iPhone. It probably sounds pretty crappy. Well, I'm doing this to show you something very cool. Many of you guys know that my production team works over at Podsworth Media, and they've been producing my show for quite a while. I get a lot of questions and people asking, who does your podcast? Why does it sound great? And I'm telling you why. It's because the guys at Podsworth are amazing. They've got this brand new online app for taking rough recordings like this and making them a whole lot cleaner and more listenable with just a few easy clicks. It will remove background noise. It reduces plosives. It fixes clipping, which is distortion from recording with the gain up too high. Clipping, which is distortion from recording with the gain up too high, which I can promise you I've done many times, and they fixed this for me. It removes clicks and pops. And then also levels out the dialogue, so there's no crazy where the guest sounds too loud or the interviewer sounds too quiet. Here's what you guys can do. All of y'all that are interested in recording podcasts or audiobooks or anything, if you're a pastor and you want your sermon recorded, whatever the case may be, go to podsworth.com and click Get Started. You drag and drop your audio files or click to open your file manager. This also works on your smartphone's web browser. You customize your settings that you want, but the default works fine on most podcast recordings. Then enter code BUCK50, BUCK50 for 50% off of your first order. You don't need an account, just an email address and payment. And you'll get a download link in your email for your cleaned up files. How cool is this? The guys at Podsworth run everything they do through this app before they do anything else to it. So all of my recordings go through this app that we're talking about. It works great. Like I said, any spoken word recordings, obviously for podcasts, YouTube videos, sermons, audiobooks, whatever, it will make awful recordings sound listenable and much more professional. So, like I said, go to podsworth.com and click Get Started. You can use promo code BUCK50, BUCK50 for 50% off of your first order. You can use promo code BUCK50, BUCK50 for 50% off of your first order. Let's get it.
You are now listening to the Counterflow Podcast, a place for dissonant voices and unapproved opinions.
You get split in half, the icon, the hologram graph, but I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus, but I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Here is your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back once again to the Counterflow Podcast. As always, I am your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson, coming to you from Lockhart, Texas. I hope y'all's Thanksgiving was great. I hope it was great, and we're getting into the cold season here. Some of you might be listening and saying it's been cold here for a long time, but here in Texas, it's finally starting to cool down, and I've been wanting this guest on for a little while now. She's got a great YouTube channel. She's been doing regular podcasts on it, but now she's doing live streams as well. And some of the stuff we will be talking about today are things that were touched upon in a couple of those live streams. Her name is Jamie Hanshaw. I've had her husband, Jay Dyer, on a few times, friend of the show. I'm very happy to finally get her on. She's authored several great books. We're going to talk about those. We're going to talk about her YouTube channel. And this is honestly this red pill versus feminism and whatever you want to call this manosphere arguments that people get into. It's actually not a topic that I love talking about because I'm so outside of it by fortune initially and now by choice. But she articulates things so well, and she's very good at explaining and walking us through a lot of these details that once I heard her live stream that she did called, I believe it was called Red Pill to Rainbow Pipeline, I said, we got to talk to her about this stuff. And that's something to think about. Has that crossed your mind? The red pill to rainbow pipeline. See, that's something that I was thinking about and it crossed my mind. I heard her articulate things so well. So that's why we got her on. Let's just bring her in now. Jamie Hanshaw for the first time on the show. Welcome, ma'am. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, to be quite honest. I
like your colorful background. It's kind of like ours is.
It is. Yeah. Last time I had Jay on, I didn't know this, but y'all have moved to Florida. And how I didn't know it with that background, that's like Mr. Florida man and Mrs. Florida woman background. I love it.
Yeah, we like warm weather.
Me too. Yeah. I'm in Texas. And I want to get to that. I think you used to live here. And okay, I think we have some past interests, at least in common, or at least how we started here in this. Were you in Austin?
I was.
Me too.
That's
okay.
The first place I ran to when I started getting into the conspiracy world.
Okay.
So I was living in Southern California, which is
I used to do that too.
A bubble in itself, and no one was listening to me, and I'd grab people by the lapels and say, look up in the sky, there's chemtrails poisoning through it. Like, this was maybe like in 2004, 5, 6. So back in the dark ages.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get to that. Before we do, okay. I'll let you say anything you want about kind of an intro for yourself, what my audience might find pertinent, and then we'll get to some Austin conspiracy roots too.
Okay. My name is Jamie Hanshaw. You can find me on YouTube under my name. It's JamieHanshaw. I have a show on there. I've been experimenting with live streams. Those are very fun. So the shows that I have been doing for the past couple years were all very thought out and thesis and planned out with a guest. And then I've been doing live streams recently. So those have been really fun to interact live with the chat. And I also have a show on Rockfin for subscribers where we get really deep into dark issues. I call it, defense against the dark arts, stuff that is not for the faint of heart.
Mm-hmm. And your books we should talk about too. You can show those.
I have 3 books. One I don't sell anymore because it was written before I became an Orthodox Christian. So I changed a lot of my worldviews about magic and occult because I used to think that magic was a tool and it was up to the operator or the user to determine if it was good or bad, black or white. And then I just kind of shifted my paradigm after I became Orthodox. But I do have 2 for sale that are still very good, and they are about culture creation. So popular culture, heavy on Disney, kids shows, mind control, Project Monarch, MK Ultra. So this was way back before androgyny became a thing, which I was planning to do a part 3 talking about androgyny, but I just never got to that project because of life, But so I had this book about princess warrior programming. So this was 2000 to 2012, what they were putting on girls and boys, right? And then I came out with this one, Hollywood Mind Control, where I have 5 case studies of big-time celebrities, Britney Spears, Katy Perry, Beyonce, Michael Jackson, and the beginning of Hollywood, which goes back to the very beginning of time in the first cities in ancient Sumer. So it's very interesting to follow the creation of theater and the worship of gods is all connected.
Yes. And for those listening, if you have a chance, I was able to see Jay and Jamie in Austin, Texas. Gosh, no, it's been, I don't know, it felt like 5 months ago or something like that. Her presentation on some of the topics you just discussed that are in her books is wonderful. So if you guys have a chance and they're in your town, go check it out. So you got to Austin in and around 2004 or 5. How did you get into the conspiracy stuff, and why did you pick Austin to move to?
Because that's where everyone was at. So I was watching, who are the oldies? Jordan Maxwell, watching Freeman Fly, watching Alex Jones, Michael Tessarion, all of those early conspiracy guys. And I just thought that was the, nexus of these smart people who were putting this information out. And they had a bookstore called Brave New Books. Yes.
John Bush, I believe, is the one that ran that one. I think he ran Brave New Books. Yeah, right on the drag on Guadalupe.
Exactly. So I had a brother who lived in Dallas. So I went to visit my brother and I would pop down to Austin and like try to meet people because it was super lonely, in SoCal. Like everyone is in this bubble of like, perfect, I had a perfect swimming pool and a condo and a nice life. But I just was recognizing that all of this was so fragile that if I don't help try to spread the word. I know that sounds stupid. Get the word out. And you think when you're like back then, you're so naive. You think if you could just get the word out, people would change. We could stop all of this from happening. If people knew, then they would, do something about it. But that's really naive. Like now that we've gone through the, COVID and everything, you're kind of red pilled or black pilled really about how people just want to live in delusion.
Yes.
And it's been a frustrating but satisfying journey. It's been a sacrificial thing that we do for humanity, not to get rich or be famous or anything like that. But it's just we continue to try to wake people up.
There used to, when I was into this stuff, first I was watching Alex on a public access TV show. I say here, I'm not in Austin anymore. I'm outside of Austin, but it was in Austin, Texas. And he was interesting, of course, in his presentation, but the things he was saying, I guess I was young and open-minded enough to think like, this is fascinating. So I kept listening. And then do you remember there was an FM talk radio station that was basically conspiracy type radio, and Alex was on it. A guy named Jack Blood was on it.
I know Jack Blood. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, I met him and I actually have like a monarch butterfly tattoo on my back that I got way before I knew any of this. And he pulls down his shirt and he shows me a butterfly tattoo and he's like, we're all around,
Oh, how cool.
Yeah. So we have that in common. But yeah, I knew him. And so me and Freeman Fly, we actually had a Access show that recorded right after Alex Jones on Austin Access.
I must have seen it then.
Yeah, he would leave that studio and we would go on and we would talk about more occult things because the occult wasn't as palatable as it is now. And I think we had a lot to do with that, bringing, Thelema, Aleister Crowley, all these things into the paradigm that people weren't ready to receive yet. And especially like people who were like, if we can just get Ron Paul into office.
Yes.
Then we'll be fine. And I'm like, that is not the root of the problem, you guys.
That was me. That was me. I thought that. You know, I understand the mistake now in my thinking, but yeah, I thought this guy, he's like legitimate and he understands where we're coming from. I thought he's got a chance,
Right. So if you don't know about secret societies, if you don't know about, occult and Freemasonry and black magic and things like that, you're not going to even get anywhere. And that's what I continue to try and draw out because they get sidetracked with champions that are false, idols, basically. And now we're seeing that it led to this weird red pill sphere.
Yes.
But so back then it was very political. It was very like talking about occult and spirituality was fringe.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And disrespected a lot.
Yep.
So, but I continued,
Yeah, I'm certain I must have, I had to, as you're explaining that show, it's ringing some bells for me and not striking, like I did see this. How cool.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned red pill and I want to get into that. And I've heard you say something similar as my own experience with it. I took it, I was familiar with the red pill movement, meaning like, the scales are off your eyes, you understand what's going on, the Matrix reference, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to a libertarian friend of mine one night and she said, no, but I'm talking about the red pill men movement. And I said, I'm not familiar. I don't even know what that is. This was just a couple of years ago. And she tried to, it's these men's rights guys and they think that all women are mean to them or they've abused them through the years and that we have the men have don't have the upper hand in anything. And I thought, that doesn't make any sense. Or, there's always, with evil, there's always nuggets of truth in it. So you can understand some of where they're coming from, but it just sounded, I don't know, for lack of a better term, kind of dumb. And I let it go, never really got into it. And then over the last year, I would say, my girlfriend and her sister were kind of in these circles of women versus men and the manosphere, and they started telling me about some of this stuff, and I was like, what? So then I researched a little bit of Andrew Tate, and it's just, now I start to see it, of course. It's like when you learn a new word or term, you see it everywhere. And that's how it seems like it's been with this red pill thing. And I do kind of understand some of where these hurt or bitter men are coming from. And I never want to give like a free pass to feminism because I think that's really bad. Yeah, one thing I always struggle with, sometimes I don't know that it matters, but I'd like to get your opinion. What came first? The feminists, is the red pill thing a reaction to that? Or were where do you see that having started, and what are the roots of this general argument that goes back and forth?
Well, feminism is pretty old, at least 100 years old. The actual like feminism TM, right, the official movement. I think we're just dealing with people in a fallen state.
Yeah.
And the world has been set up in a way that produces narcissistic people. And so we're seeing that play out, and this battle of the sexes is so important because that is the only demographic where the divide and conquer can be 50-50.
Yeah.
So in about 2016, I was at a conference speaking about a cult in Hollywood and royalty programming. And another one of the speakers there was Mark Passio, and he was speaking out against feminism. And he's one of the first people that I was hearing these words from: MGTOW, men going their own way, anti-feminism, stuff like that. And he made such good points. He was like, if you can get people divided by religion, then you get just a fraction of people fighting. If you get them divided by ethnicity or, country or economics, whatever, there's still going to be people on outside of it. And but if you can get men and women fighting each other, then you've split down the entire population right down the middle. And that is like the biggest divide and conquer strategy there is.
I think, being that you're married, maybe this is even more so online, something you see rather than real life. But one of the things I've told people, that these weird attitudes where the men are like, what's your egg count, or you're too old for this, or you have a body count. And then that seems only online to me. I've never heard one man in person, like at a bar or a restaurant, talking to females and asking these strange questions like, well, I got to know your body count, or I won't be with you. Or it's almost like, do you have big hips so you can have a kid? Just strange things like that. It seems only online, unless I'm mistaken there.
Well, it's seeping out. So it begins online, and it begins in the echo chambers and in the, places where the people who don't have social skills hang out. And they get on there and they have this, reinforced ideas about men and women, both. Like, I can fall into that trap too. If because algorithms determine a lot of your worldview, and people don't realize that. They think that they're thinking their own thoughts and they're coming to their own conclusions, but it's actually the algorithm that's feeding you. And they have even proven that these things are tailored to get you angry, because anger keeps you invested. It keeps you on the Twitter, on the Facebook, on the TikTok, commenting. That is the impetus that drives the participation of it all, is being angry. So
yes, I heard you say something in one of your live streams that was struck me as being familiar. That you said sometimes you'll get in a bad mood because you read a tweet, and Jay will say, "Look, you're in a bad mood now because you read a stupid person writing a stupid thing, and now it's affecting your emotions."
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because girls are more susceptible to that. When you hear a girl say, "I've been betrayed or cheated on," you feel that, right? And then that you project that onto your partner. You're like, he didn't do anything, but you still feel that anger. Like, why would you do that? So I think especially empathetic people, women will take on offenses of other women and project that onto their partner. So they're definitely guilty of that. And I know that TikTok makes me, feeds me things to get my engagement that, raise my blood pressure or whatever. So
in this red pilled community, do you see any value in any of the generalized arguments, or is it just that they're misplacing bitterness and resentment, anger? What do you see that as?
like as a woman, it's crazy because it's so hateful, and they project motivations on women that are not their motivation at all. Women aren't motivated by being slutty and sexual. They're motivated by like trying to get love, or at least trying to get money, right? Sex is not hard for a woman to get, so that's not her motivation. But both sides have legitimate grievances, and I never want to invalidate, somebody's like experience. And so they've got the women going towards, like OnlyFans and sexual liberation and all of this, and being as sleazy as possible. And then the men, like, even though they participate in that, they secretly despise that because they know it's not right. Right. So you've got these weird perpetuating cycles. And then the things that get so popular just kind of blows my mind. Like, I don't want to call out anybody like by name, but just, when you have a panel of sex workers and you're just demoralizing them and dehumanizing it and humiliating them, like they're already at the lowest possible level in life. And now you're bringing on these mentally ill people and exploiting them for views, even though you might be in some kind of like morally right standpoint. What you're doing is despicable, in my opinion. It's just getting really weird. And so these champions come out and they're influencing young men, and those young men grow up to have all of these ideas about how women are and how they act and why they act. So that's another thing. They can tell you, they can show you how they're acting, but they don't say why they're acting that way, and they don't say how you can improve.
Right.
So it's just how much degeneracy can you show me and prove to me, but you're not saying this is because of, propaganda or mind control or the culture that you were brought up in is false. And this is the way out. It's just kind of like, here's all the sluts and the misogynists. And then you get a idea of how this is how women are when you don't actually know what's going on behind the scenes, which is, in my opinion, it's black magic.
Yep.
And I've written 3 books on how that is exactly what it is. And I'm not just saying, hyperbole. It is literally a spell.
Yes, that's what I want to dive into. And I want to make a point before we get into that, because I think that's important. I've felt often that these shows you're talking about, where it has this panel of OnlyFans workers and they're kind of dogging on them, they're getting angry young men to watch them. I often suspect, I don't know this, but these same angry young men that are like, yeah, get her, probably go and subscribe to the OnlyFans. I don't know. I mean, I imagine these girls are getting on there because it boosts their numbers.
That's exactly why they go on there. And then they try to act like this isn't happening.
Yeah.
You see these, actresses, and you see them on these shows, so like Fresh and Fit or whatever, and their numbers are probably boosted because they were on that show. No one would have ever known about them otherwise. Yeah.
And for them to just go on in public, take some shaming or abuse, I don't know, maybe some of them are into something strange like that. If the payoff is literally payoff, if it's money, right? It's the whole thing seems...
It's exposure, yeah. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I want to talk about that black magic. Are you saying that you think the modern, let's say, the modern female can be influenced by pop culture, which has deeper, darker roots than maybe they imagine?
Oh, definitely. And I can prove it. I've got hours of content online and 3 books to back it up. So what we're talking about is weaponized propaganda that is put out by people who study dark arts, believe in spiritual realm, believe in mind control. So sorcery is about making robots, robotic people who follow orders without questioning. And, all of your world leaders, people that make great waves in history, Tiny Mustache Man, for instance. I'm about to do a show on Rockfin about him and his obsession with black magic, with Tibetan magic specifically. So this goes into some weird places like yoga and the New Age movement, which is all wrapped up in this. Why are women like suddenly all trying to do yoga, meditate, and be into Buddhist and things like that? So they don't realize that this is all occult practices, and the people who really are learned about the occult are into mind control and making total mind control slaves out of people who they believe are dumb and lesser and not magicians. So that's kind of what the checkerboard floor represents in Masonry. Is there's good and evil, but the magician transcends that, and your true will is, what the goal is, and that's whatever you want to do. That's the dictum of Thelema, which is like the hidden religion of the 20th century. Just do what thou wilt is the whole of law, right?
That was a lot. That was good. So is there a wave, would you say, of, I keep hearing, and I'm stating this broadly, but I do know what, I understand these, but I'm doing this for the audience purposes. There's first wave, second wave, third wave feminism. Was there a wave of that movement that was infiltrated by this type of black magic mind control? Or is it just kind of coincidence of timing? Things just happened as the waves came along?
Well, this started in the turn of the century, 18 to 1900. And they were very much into spiritualism and Ouija boards and contacting the dead and hosting seances and stuff like that. So this is what the people who promulgated the first waves of feminism were into. And there's a really good book called Occult Roots of Feminism. And I had a guest, Rachel Wilson, on my channel.
She's been on here.
Oh, okay, good. So you know about that. So yeah, definitely feminism and the occult go together. So does birth control. Matches up with mind control. And this also kind of dovetails into communism, Marxism, and those ideas, right? Yes,
well put. Now I have to be careful. Are there origins in some of this that are, let's think of a good code word, Israeli?
Yes. So Freemasonry has a lot of roots in the building of the Temple of Solomon is one of their foundational stories, right? So they think that a lot of their rituals go back to Solomon the magician, who was reported to have brought Baal worship in through his wives. All the 700 wives that he took were pagan. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And they brought their paganism with them. And so the seal of Solomon would be what the six-pointed star is, right? It has nothing to do with Israel today.
David, right?
Yeah. And so out of this comes Kabbalah. That's a giant chunk of ritual magic and what we're talking about today. So that has its roots a lot in Spain, but also in Judaism. What was the question?
Just some of the roots of this, the darkness behind, let's say, the magic of feminism and stuff. Did it come? Sometimes when I research something that's like this in nature, it's like finding a bad person that's famous and you go to the early life section. There's always this one thing in common. I was wondering if some of that came from that same place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's like layers, that you add on it, and then you have the Babylonian Talmud. So Babylon is what we talk about a lot because that was a big epicenter of black magic and pagan worship. Tower of Babel, you've all heard of that. And like you mentioned before, in my live talk, which I haven't given any of the information really in my shows because I want to save that for people who, buy a ticket. But going back to the very first cities, Uruk and Babylon, they all were visited by their patron gods. So I'm sure you've seen Ancient Aliens, right? And the Anunnaki. So this is something we talk about, and this goes together with biblical foundation with Genesis 6 and the Nephilim and the things like that. So it's not like woo-woo, but they really did believe that the god would visit their city. And their symbol for this action was the crossroads, right? So that's where we get the X and why Twitter is now called X, because X is the point where the human and God meet at the crossroads.
Yes.
And then you have the lore in the rock and roll is started at the crossroads.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask. You knew exactly it. Yeah. The crossroads story where you sell your soul, basically.
Right.
Yes. I know a lot of you guys want to see more beauty in this world, in this culture, because modern art is so degenerate and nihilistic. It does seem that there's a huge need to share the beautiful Christian art. Some artists are working to keep tradition alive. My good friend and friend of the show, Amy Mastrini, Amy the artist, she's been painting for 11 years. She's an Orthodox Christian. She creates icons of Jesus Christ, Mary, the saints, and so on. Her work is done in oil and gold leaf. It's really, really nice. I have some pieces from Amy. It's the perfect opportunity to beautify your home or give a gift to your loved ones for a holiday or a birthday. She sells art prints, stickers, original paintings on her website. Go check it out, amy-the-artist.com. That is amy-the-artist.com. She is currently accepting commissions as well. She says a lot of her work is intended to honor the divine and sacred. How wonderful is that? Go check it out, amy-the-artist.com. Follow her on Instagram at amy_the_artist. Let's get back to the show.
So all of this black magic goes back to the very first, the writings of Epic of Gilgamesh. So he was our first action hero champion. He was 2/3 God and 1/3 human. And his whole story was trying to get back to the realm of the gods because he thought it was unfair that he had to live amongst the humans. Right? And you have the story of Inanna, who became Isis, and Astarte, and Ashtoreth, and all of these later on incarnations of this goddess, Inanna, who was supposed to bring the things that made a civilization, what they called the maze. So if you look at her story, she stole things from the realm of the gods and she brought them to her city so that it would be the most powerful city. Things like the idea of kingship, the things like measuring out acres and property and crowns. And one of the most important things was what in Greek they call the hieros gamos, but it was like the sexual ritual where the king would have public sexual ritual with the priestess of Inanna, who was supposed to be incarnating the goddess. And that was his legitimacy to the throne. His claim to the throne was his uniting with Inanna. And this became mystery schools who imparted their knowledge through plays, songs, and play acting. And they thought they were incarnating the god, just like, Beyonce would become Sasha Fierce or whatever to do the singing and dancing. So they were actually modeling the acts of the gods and goddesses in heaven. And this is where we get movies and plays and, what we think of as just, harmless popular culture is actually ancient god and goddess worship.
Yeah, it seems more apparent now than ever. People hold these people up as idols, and it's very apparent, it seems to me. I want to get into, in one of your live streams, you mentioned that gurus are a litmus test for how many people can easily be hypnotized. And there's men and women that listen to the show. Believe it or not, there are females. I want to talk about what to watch for? Because it's very easily slipped into some of these influencers chirping or writing things that seem to have a kernel of truth. Obviously, we know Andrew Tate's one on the men's side, and we can discuss other ones on the men's side. Are there types of quote unquote gurus that females tend to fall for? And then we can talk about some of the ones men fall for as well.
Yeah, girls tend to fall for the Eastern mysticism gurus, the Sai Babas and Osho, and just
yeah, just watched
little
that.
old Indian men who tell you to meditate, and they speak so softly and they're so like quirky and they seem harmless, but on the other side of it, all they're trying to do is just get a harem of girls, mind control girls, also through yoga and meditation, and trying to heal you with their magical, phallus. And so the further you get under these gurus, you're going to find yourself under him. They live chastely and, pious, sort of detached lives. They don't. They're just like any other predatory guru. So yes, I think that they fall for that New Age Buddhism, Hinduism, mysticism, just like a man can fall for the hyper masculine, Andrew Tate or Liver King or whatever. But it's so funny because they always tell on themselves and they always reveal this is what gray propaganda is, right? So you have to say something true. Otherwise, people would just dismiss you out of hand like a crazy person.
Right.
So you have to say some things that everyone's going to agree with, or a large swath of people are going to say, oh, well, he's saying the truth. But then comes the other shoe is going to drop. It's like, we actually hate women and we use them for our business and we traffic them. We brand them. I don't know if you've seen that. So you mentioned Andrew Tate. He actually brags that he has got over 20 women to get his name tattooed on them. And this is something that Aleister Crowley would also do. So he would, throughout his life, he had, 7 or 8 magical working partners, wives and girlfriends, who most of them ended up in a sane asylum when it was all said and done because they couldn't handle the demonization. Mm-hmm. But what he would do is brand them with an X and a circle right between their chest. And this is also called the Mark of the Beast. Mm. And I do the show on Rockfin that I had done recently is called Rated XO because Aleister Crowley's protege named Kenneth Grant of the OTO wrote this book called Aleister Crowley and the Hidden God, which is all about Pan, Greek god Pan, right? Okay. And he reveals in that book that the occultists believe that this symbol, the X and the O, is literally the mark of the beast. And so there you've got Twitter again. Mm-hmm. And I knew I had to do this. Like, I knew this information a long time, but then when they came out with it's now X, and I said, watch, they're going to make his profile picture the circle and the X. And of course, that's what they did. So that you are literally looking at the mark of the beast. And I think we might do some of this on Alex Jones next week, but I have 2 articles pulled up about how Elon Musk wants to make Twitter a financial institution.
Yes. Yep.
Right? So it's like, come on, you guys. I'm not even smart enough for this many people to be dumber than me.
Yes, I've always said the same thing. Like, if I can see it, you guys have to be able to see it. I'm not smart.
Yeah. And so your champion, Andrew Tate, is in a year-long ongoing battle for being a human trafficker. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, how much more sleazy can you get? But I can't believe that people just fall for these false prophets.
Right. Yeah. It's, I almost can believe it in some, I can't believe it's people that are at least adjacent to the circles I'm in. That's the more shocking part, I suppose. I could see where a large segment of unhappy men and or women would, but when I see it at least adjacent to my circles, it's kind of confusing to me because one of the things luckily, it's not huge in Orthodoxy, but I have heard even some guys within Orthodoxy, or at least Orthodox adjacent, be upset with the body count phenomenon of females. What I've often pushed back with Saint Mary of Egypt, and we're not here to condemn someone for their past if they're repenting, et cetera. What are your thoughts on that?
For me, Orthodoxy is kind of like, in Reddit where you can go to that subreddit called "Am I the Asshole?"
Yes.
Right? So Orthodoxy is like, the answer to that question is always yes.
Yes,
Right?
thank you.
It's going to be yes, I am.
Right.
So whenever you're judging people, it's a very dangerous thing, because how can you judge an OnlyFans girl when you've been consuming that content your whole life?
Right.
Right? How can you judge a girl for her body count when you have the same number?
Yeah.
Right?
Or more.
And so it's wild to try and watch these guys do these mental gymnastics about how men and women are different. It doesn't mean anything if he's had XYZ partners. It means more if she has. So a lot of that, I just think, comes from being insecure. And obviously, the goal would be both having a zero body count.
Of
right?
course.
That's ideal, or extremely low and repentant of that. But they don't even accept a woman if she's repentant. So a lot of times I see girls turn their life around and they still get dragged on social media. I'm like, why would you even post such personal things? This is so weird to me, because I grew up before the internet. I grew up before social media. I had a whole adult life before it even was a thing.
Right.
So I'm used to just keeping private things private.
Yes.
But now it's weird to want everyone to know everything about yourself and your entire journey. But
the term that also you get in here, and I was so happy I can't praise you enough for this live stream you did, and we're going to get into the skills stuff in a second. But you said high value, the high value term, that drives me absolutely crazy. It's such a materialist. I come from the libertarian world in my past. I can't think of anything that Ayn Rand would love more than to put a value on a human being, meaning, oh, well, she's high value, she's low value, or look at this sexual market value. Talk about that term.
Well, when we come to Christ to be wedded to him, does he ask us what we bring to the table?
Right.
Does he say, you're not a 10? Does he call you low value? No. So this is our standard. Not that we just marry anybody or get into a relationship with anybody, but this is, our model of how we treat people, right? And how we think about them. We're forgiving and we're graceful and we have mercy, and we see value in people that a lot of other people wouldn't see that value. And to me, it's almost like they're thinking about finding a partner, like going onto a used car lot and trying to get the best deal that they can get. And love is the shady salesman who's trying to rip you off, right? So you have to put up all these walls and say, I don't want no gold diggers, even though you don't have any gold to dig. And I don't want this and I don't want that. And women do this too. I deserve this and this and this and this. And they don't want to put in the servant attitude that love requires, that partnership and marriage requires. So this, but we're trying to outdo each other in being a servant. And the relationship is modeled on martyrdom, and that's why you're crowned in the Orthodox Church as a king and queen, but also the crown of a martyr who is sacrificing their entire life for the salvation of this other person and your own salvation as well. So this is the kind of mindset that we need to be having when we're trying to couple up and think about having, partners and families. And it is such an important decision. I don't disparage anyone for trying to make the right decision or be choosy because, you're picking your apocalypse partner
That's right.
right now, right? You need someone steady and someone who's not going to destroy everything that you've built. But the attitude going in is like, what can you do for me? And that comes from men and women, right?
Yep.
So it's just really a tough thing to watch because I'm just a romantic person, right? I love love. I love rom-coms. I love like romance and whatever comes along with that. I love families, babies, wholesome stuff. Like, so I love going to weddings. I love going to showers and celebrating love. And to see it dragged like this is a really hard thing to watch.
Do you think the red pill movement's a psyop?
Definitely.
Explain that. And real quick, some people listening just hear that term, psyop, and they're going to say, oh, you think it's like 5 people pulling the strings of the entire movement or something like that. Explain what that is and why you think the red pill movement is one.
It's funny because I made 2 live streams about like red pill and delusional expectations of relationships.
Yeah.
And somebody commented, you're just a woman. I can't believe you would even try to teach a man anything. And I was like, well, I might not know anything as a woman, but at least I know what a psyop is.
Yes.
Okay. And so, like we were talking about in the beginning, the goal of Satan and whoever works for him and his minions and his principalities and powers is to destroy relationships, destroy love, destroy family, destroy children through abortions, ritual sacrifice, diddling kids, getting you to kill yourself. Those are like the big 3 things. So if you know what their goals are, you can kind of see how the path that would take to get people to go down those routes, right? And red pill and feminism cover all those bases. So feminism with the ritual sacrifice and the bobos. And they even say in the Church of Satan, you can't take this away from us because this is part of our sacraments, right? And so for a young guy who is very bad at socializing, which the internet has made us even worse at socializing. Like I thought I was shy, but at least I can order a pizza, or do normal thing. I can get a cab. I'm not a chatty person, but to watch how kids interact today is really sad. But if you believed that all women were whores and they will never be loyal to you and you will never find a good, person that will love you, then that's going to put you on the track. Well, what is the purpose of living?
Yep.
And that's one more step closer to suicide because, that's a huge win for the dark side if they can get you to do that. Right?
Yep.
And then just the rampant promiscuity is the destruction of the entire family unit, which is the nucleus of society, and it all breaks down. And I think we can see that these liberal principles do not play out for the good of anybody. San Francisco is a
perfect example
of that. So it was always this Skittles haven.
Yep.
Right. And very much a epicenter of that kind of thought and behavior, liberalism, alphabet people.
Yeah.
Now look at it, right? It's a wasteland. It was one of the most beautiful cities I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Right. And I've seen a lot. And now you can't even go there. And it's funny, they cleaned it up because Xi Jinping was coming to America. They couldn't clean it up for us.
Right. Yes.
Portland was another one. Do you remember the failures of, what was it called? Chaz and Chop?
Yep. That was in Seattle. But yes, the Antifa. Yeah. I just had Abbott Trefon on last week, and he said his favorite cities were San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle, and he can't go to any of the 3 of them anymore.
Yeah. I think I visited Portland when it was just about to fall off the cliff. Like all of my friends at that time were very free-spirited. They were hippies. They were travelers. They were, they call themselves urban campers.
I've heard that.
And they're like, this is beautiful. We can do anything we want here and no one bothers us. We can camp out. We can, live on the street. There's all of these programs and free money. And, they're just so welcoming to this type of lifestyle. But now it's, shithole.
Yeah.
Because of the policies that do not support men and women staying together and making a family, which is the foundation of our societies that work, right?
Yeah. And one issue you mentioned in one of your live streams, and I had thought the same thing. Again, it was interesting to hear you discuss it. Some of these guys in the red pill movement, it seems like the anti-woman sentiment is so strong and they're so obsessed with some of them are so obsessed with what they look like. And you start to think, are you just going to go for men at this point then? Because if you shun women so harshly, no woman's going to like you, for one. But it seems like some of these guys are going to look at their bodies and be like, well, what about just us, dude? I assume you've seen that too, because that was the title of your live stream, was the red pill to rainbow pipeline, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. So what they are putting into young men's heads is that no woman is ever going to be loyal to you. So you might as well get whatever you can from them. Spin your plates, keep many on rotation, and treat them as, suspiciously as possible. And yeah, this hyperfixation on looks, like it kind of cracks me up. They think that they can't have a relationship because of their chin or their jawline or their canthal tilt. Like, come on, I really don't think that women are putting calipers on a guy's face and saying, this is not why I don't want to date you. Right? It's because of your attitude.
Yeah, it's usually because they have this
already
offensive, try-hard, desperate attitude that's so annoying and autistic. And, that's what drives women away. I've seen pretty women with average-looking men that are just great people, and they have no issues with their jawline or whatever.
Well, they don't understand that women's attraction can grow. It's not like, if a guy's not attracted to you in the beginning, don't even bother, right? It's just not, it's a non-starter. But a woman can be convinced that you are handsome through your personality, through your virtues, through your resources,
Yeah.
So a woman's love can grow and her attraction can grow. So they're trying to look at women, saying that women look at them through a male perspective, and it's really weird. And so they get these try to get bodybuilder bodies and the perfect look, and I'm like, that is not really what's attractive to women. That's attractive to men. And a lot of bodybuilder bodies are for other men, right?
Yes.
Women don't care if you have a six-pack. They really don't.
Thank God.
But so yeah, the red pill is, a lot of lies, but it's just hard to convince somebody because they're like, that's exactly what a woman would say. Women are all liars. So you're gonna lie to me. It's just really weird to watch. It's kind of like racism now. Like, feminist is the new racist. It just doesn't mean anything anymore because anyone can call you that.
Yes. Right.
And it's funny because I had Rachel on my show and I was like, I keep getting called a feminist just because I don't like this stuff. And so I had her make me a quiz. Right. Because she's the professional on feminism. And I said, let's find out. And I scored not feminist. So I've been certified in.
Yes.
Not.
It's and we'll get you out of here quickly. Another thing you said that I found interesting: most men don't know about the conspiracy, and most women don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Could you explain that briefly?
Yeah. So, in my travels and in my experience trying to get the word out, women are more concerned with day-to-day, mundane. Kids got to eat, right? All of this doesn't matter because I have mouths to feed, I have rent to pay. Men were more open to this for whatever reason because, single men especially, because they didn't have a lot of responsibilities that require you to be in the day-to-day grind, right? But so women were a lot more practical in their approach to receiving this information. But they were receptive when I would talk about like pop stars, like female pop stars, for example, and the sorcery and the mind control that goes on behind, Taylor Swift or whatever. So that's kind of why I used those things as a gateway to introduce them to conspiracy theories.
Got it. Okay.
Right? Because they could see that part of it because of like body image standards and because being told you have to be sexy and twerk and demonic and like Beyonce. So that is kind of the inroads that I took to the female approach. Guys, you could tell them more the big picture things like Tavistock Institute and Freemasonry and royal bloodlines and stuff like that, and they would get it. But the women would get it through the popular culture.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, that tracks. That makes sense. Let's talk about something fun before we get out of here. I think it was fun. We're about to find out.
The whole thing was fun.
The Italy trip
that
you guys took. What it was about, what y'all thought of the entire thing. I know Jay, apparently from following him, was not a huge fan of Rome, but talk about that trip and what it entailed.
Okay, so the first time I went to Rome was in 2004, and it was an enchanting place. It was beautiful, it was romantic, it was not so crowded. You could walk around and stroll around at your leisure and sit at a cafe, or you could wander into the Vatican. I mean, gosh. Now it's a fortress like it used to be in the olden days, but we'd walk right up to the steps of the Pantheon and walk in the door and look around and whatever we wanted to do. I went back in 2006 and it was almost the same. It was a very enjoyable experience. And now, 2023, it was completely different from what I remember. I was so excited because I wanted to show Jay like all my favorite spots and, the things that I knew about. And it was completely crowded. It was overrun with immigrants, which is a whole other ball of wax, right? Not that we're racist over here, but I think that this is a weaponized
certainly
thing to tear down Europe. So hardly any Italians.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the ones that we did deal with were very fussy, very unwelcoming, which I can understand. Like their culture is eroding right in front of their eyes. Like they're being slowly invaded and they don't know what to do.
Right.
So, I gave them grace on that. So crowded, like you can't even get up to Trevi Fountain. Like the first time I went there, you could walk up and throw your coin in and take a picture and it was fine. Here, people are pushing against you. You can't even enter. You have to like make a reservation if you want to eat at a restaurant. So the graffiti was out of control. The trash, the poop on the street.
God.
It's like all of these major cities are like San Francisco, like we were talking about, they're just invaded and by, so then we went to so many places, Florence, Milan, Amalfi, Bari. I would say 2/3 of the places were nice, not the big tourist places, So like if you were to go to Bari, it was very beautiful. The food, he could eat anything. So here he has terrible stomach issues, right? He can only eat like certain things that we buy organically. He's on the carnivore diet here. But there he could eat the bread, he could eat the noodles, he could eat the candies, the tiramisu, like anything he wanted, and he didn't get any stomachache. This was a pilgrimage. I like to say it was not a vacation because we were on the bus with our priest from Florida and 45 other pilgrims. And it was a different town every day, 2 or 3 sites every day, major cathedrals and churches. And so it was a whirlwind. And it's overwhelming, the treasures of Christendom that are there in every town. And I'm afraid for what's going to happen to these things and monuments because of the invasion. People are not going to be treasuring these things like they have been treasured for the past 2,000 years, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting to realize, I mean, we know it, but Jay, when he's talked about that trip, it kind of clicked, like, you guys all realize Italy was Orthodox first, you know, because everyone thinks of it as Catholic at this
Right.
point. So it's awesome that y'all got to see a lot of old Orthodox sites, correct?
It was kind of crazy. Like, if you go to the Vatican now, they have 2 giant jumbotrons in front of the marble statues of St. Peter and St. Paul. Have you ever been to Italy, Rome?
I'm not, no.
Okay. So in the Vatican courtyard, you have that big obelisk, and you have these 2 giant marble statues of Peter and Paul. But now they have jumbotrons in front of them broadcasting from the serpent room of the Vatican, which is that crazy new hall they have with the big, ugly sculpture. Just Google serpent room at the Vatican, serpent cathedral or something like that. So now they broadcast from there, and the Pope was in there, and they were having clown dances. I kid you not, on the jumbotrons in the Vatican Square, Piazza and Vatican. And the clowns were dressed in like rainbow Skittles costumes.
Oh, no.
Giving a performance for children, you know, popping balloons and doing all kinds of silly, nonsensical things. And this was what was happening at the Vatican the day we were there. Nothing was happening in the St. Peter's Church. But they were broadcasting from the Serpent Cathedral. And what else?
Were y'all able to attend the liturgy over there at all?
Oh, yeah, we went to 2. We went to one in Bari. So that was really special because it was the Basilica of St. Nicholas. So the, you know, patron saint of Christmas, St. Nick, who I love his story because he was a very generous person. He would drop money into the windows of poor girls who would otherwise have been forced into prostitution. So he would drop sacks of coins in their window so they could have a dowry to get married. So he was saving them from, you know, OnlyFans.
Right.
So that St. Nick's story is rescuing girls from that kind of life. So we said some prayers. Actually, I said this on Twitter. I said, you know, I'm going to pray for y'all who like to disparage lost women, that you have, you know, you grow a heart for Christmas.
Very good.
So we had liturgy in there, and we venerated St. Nicholas relic. And then in Florence, we had a liturgy at the Russian Orthodox Church in Florence.
Cool. Okay.
It was really beautiful there too. So, and Florence was nice. It was pretty crowded. You know, the weather was really bad.
Oh.
Like, it rained every day. Maybe if it hadn't rained every day, it would have been different for Jay, but he got the flu.
Oh, no.
So, and we couldn't get off the tour, you know. So it's like up and at 'em at 7 a.m. and you go until 10 at night. And so if you have the flu, that's going to be really hard on you. So that's kind of what was too much for him.
Yeah, that's brutal. Are y'all going to do it again? Do you know?
Probably, yeah. It might not be Italy. He was talking about maybe like northern France and Belgium and some holy sites up there. But I mean, we saw so many holy sites. We got to meet some royalty, the Strozzi family, who were the rivals of the Medici family.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And they had they're Orthodox Christian, and they had a winery that was there since the 900s or something, like a working winery. We got to do a wine tasting with them. I met their princess, and she gave me her number. She was real sweet. But yeah, we had some magical moments. It was an adventure and a pilgrimage. It was not a vacation.
Got it. That's well put. We began with it and we'll end with it. Anything you'd like to plug, go ahead. Twitter presence, YouTube, and we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, so on YouTube, Jamie Hanshaw, that show's called Out of This World. And then on Rockspin, you can find me under my name also. And that's where we talk about defense against the dark arts and black magic and sorcery, mind control, propaganda, stuff like that. My next live stream is going to be about Taylor Swift phenomena.
Oh, I got to hear this. Okay.
Yeah. And her concert, I just sat through 3 hours of her concert online. I didn't go to the concert. I watched the movie. 40 songs. And I think y'all are going to be surprised about my analysis of Taylor Swift.
When is that live stream scheduled for?
If our internet's working, I'm going to do it on Sunday.
Oh, as in 2 days from now?
Yeah.
Okay. And it'll be up there. So this will drop on Tuesday. I'm not sure what that'll be in about 5 days from now. So your live stream will be in your live section on your YouTube page. It'll be saved there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. Jamie Hanshaw, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was really fun, and we did a lot of important topics, I think.
Yes, we covered a lot. Cool. We'll talk soon.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that discussion with the great Jamie Hanshaw. Next week is going to be a good one. Let's see. Here's the hint I will give you. It is the brother of a guest that I've had on before. Does that help? It's the brother of a guest that I've had on before. As for the show, counterflowpodcast.com, at Buck Rebel on Twitter, BuckRebel. You can follow me and find out, as I mentioned last week, kind of comically, but it has happened again, the latest updates on the feud between myself and the singer of Twisted Sister, Dee Snider. We had another back and forth. It's getting fun. Maybe he should be on this show one day. Who knows? We'll see. You can join the Telegram group. You can join the supporter group at patreon.com/counterflow. $5 or more per month get you in the monthly Zoom calls, which we should be having soon. If I can't squeeze this one into the month of November, I will have 2 in December. How about that? People have to get permission from their bishops now. Maybe that gives you a hint of the type of person that's going to be the next guest in the Zoom call. Until next week, you guys, have a good one. See ya.
You get split in half, cause I call the hologram brass. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Like the sound of the Counterflow podcast? Our audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.